All right, in this episode, I want to discuss why you need proper software documentation, right? And also how I do mine, how do I explain this? Okay, so I've never been somebody that cared about software documentation when I started my career. I just coded and I actually once I'm done coding, I deliver the project. I never really cared how it passes on from one developer to the next. But that was a big mistake. It was something I had to learn the hard way when I was starting my own career as a freelance software engineer. One thing that actually opened my eyes to it was that I had a client that complained to me that um he has a software project, but it was done by Indians. And there is nobody, he could not find anybody that would be able to take over that project. That the project, the code was so scattered, the database was so disorganized that there was nobody else that could take on the project, and he has already spent millions of naira to the Indians, spent it and giving them to develop the project. But whenever he wants to change something, they charge him an exorbitant amount, and he's trying to move that project away from the Indians to another person to handle. And every other person keeps on telling him that, you know, they have to start again from beginning to build the project. And when I was speaking with him, I could feel his heart breaking because he could not imagine starting making that investment of beginning all over again. And that was when I kind of put myself in the shoes of the clients, and I could realize that no, there is a very good need for software documentation. Like if you are building a project that somebody else cannot take over, God forbid something happens to you, let's say God forbid you pass away or you are incapacitated or there is something, just anything could happen and you cannot be able to deliver on that project. You've left your client stranded. And in our business, I believe the best thing, what we have to do is to give our clients the best service possible. So we can't just be leaving them stranded, right? So it was at that moment that I realized that software documentation is actually very important. And he actually showed me the code and showed me the database, right? And to be very frank with you here, it was a mess. There is nothing I could do. I had to tell him that the only thing he can do is just take it as a lesson, right? Take it that he's paid his dues. Let's say he has done an MBA course on software development if he's involving freelancers, right? Because I'm sure this would never happen to him again. So what we did was we had to start again, all over again to build the project, and I was creating a complete documentation for every service that I create, all the API endpoints that I create. I provide a document and I separate the front end from the back end, right? So that if somebody else wants to take over that project, it is easier. They can actually know what the person is to do. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a different package and is actually more expensive to do it this way. But it gives you peace of mind, knowing that your entire project is not dependent on one person, right? The person can, um, the client, I mean, can actually shop around with that same project because obviously you'll be uploading it to their Bitbucket or their GitHub repository. And it gives them room to even feel more comfortable with you as a software engineer. I still work with him up till today, and that has given him enough room to trust me when it comes to me building his software products. By this 2025, I've built more than 3 applications for him in 2025, and it made me the one thing I learned, especially from that software documentation, because most of us as software engineers, we don't really put ourselves in the shoes of the client. I think that was the first time I had to put myself in the shoes of the client and imagine that I paid somebody millions of naira and the person built something for me, said that it is documented, but he did rubbish, right? And obviously, since the people he paid are in India, it's not like he can just go to India and The flight ticket alone has already surpassed what he has paid for the project. So that was how that project just, and that money just, went that way because nobody could take over from what the Indians had done, right? And it dawned on me heavily that for every project I do, I have to find a way to document it or separate it or make anybody that is coming to handle that project able to take over that project and fulfill that project. God forbid I cannot do that, right? So the number one thing I do is I put the API endpoints in a separate folder and I put the JavaScript codes in a separate folder, right? So that people would not be able to intermingle the both of them. So the PHP on is separate, the JS is separate, then obviously there's HTML. Now, and what those guys did was that they put everything, they meshed everything in one folder. In that same folder, you're seeing your backend PHP running, the calling API endpoint, you're seeing your JS. The funny thing is the JS was even scattered, right? The JS was inside the HTML. It was a full mess. Then the database, I tried to make sure I organize it and use a lot of foreign keys because one thing I saw from that project was that their database, they had a database that had over 300 tables. That did not make sense. How do you end up getting 300 tables for a database? Obviously, it's a relational database. So if you're a software engineer, I believe you know what I'm saying, right? So, and when we ended up restructuring the entire project, we only needed 20 tables to show you how crazy it was, right? Only 20 tables, because with 30 tables, it's easy for you to know what's going on the database. But with 300 tables, you don't really know. And the way they named the tables, it was a mess. They named it horribly. When I mean horribly, it was horrible, right? So you have to name your tables to relate exactly what you are doing. If this table is for users, let it be users. It's not when, for example, let me give you an example. In their database, they had some tables with people, members, users, faces, login, they are user auth. You don't even know which table handles your users. That is for users on your platform. It was a lot of mess. And the crazy part, the one that blew my mind or blew me off was because obviously there was an admin portal. Now they mixed the administrator records inside the user records in all the various tables. So you don't even know which one is the administrator records. Where you can see the administrator records. User records with their table should be different. Administrator table different. Like, I don't know how they were able to mess it up and still even understand what they were doing. Because it was functional, it's just that nobody else could handle it, which is a mess, right? So for them to be able to understand that 300 tables, to me, is a miracle because I'm not sure I've never built a platform where the database has 300 tables, a single database, right? So, those are the things that are very, very important. It's not all about writing what you did. It's about organizing your codes and your database in such a way that people can actually take over or work on it with you too, right? And it will save you a lot of pain in the future because if you are somebody that they can reach, one of the lucky things is that those guys are in India. If you're a Nigerian and you do that kind of thing, they might actually come and hold you and say, what do you need to do? Especially if they paid for software documentation for you to be organized in that manner. That's all I have to say for today. Thank you very much and bye-bye.